Hello my friends. Okay, in my over 4 years of living van life in Australia, I have stayed at some pretty terrible campgrounds, from really dodgy roads getting in and out to no reception, sometimes just dodgy areas. So let me take you through what I have learnt over that time to ensure that you get the perfect campground every time. So when you're choosing a campground, the first thing you want to think about is location, and that's going to depend on obviously the area that you want to go to, whether you want to be off-grid or you want to be more in a town centre, close to, monumental sites, or you want to be in a caravan park. And the next thing you want to think about is amenities. So my experience is I'm in a camper van. I don't have a bathroom, so I don't have a shower or a toilet. I do have cooking facilities, but I don't carry gas. So if there's not enough sun, then I might not have enough electricity to cook, so I might need a barbecue. So there's a lot of different things like that you first need to think about. Now I know a lot of people prefer to use apps when they're trying to find a campground. And look, they're really great if you're in travel mode. So for me, generally, if I'm traveling, around Australia through different states and I'm not very familiar with the state, those apps are great because I can put in a filter and I can say, look, I need Wi-Fi access, I need a toilet, I might need a shower, I might want free versus paid. So you can put those filters in there and it will only show you the sites that have those filter preferences. And that's fantastic, and I've really enjoyed using those. And because when I'm traveling, I don't necessarily know where I'm going to be, so I might just sort of think about booking somewhere a day or two before I get there. Now I was originally using Wikicamps, and then I found out that Wikicamps was bought out by Discovery Parks, and Discovery Parks is one of the biggest caravan park owners in Australia. So I'm a bit dubious as to like what it's showing me now. Like, is it going to try and push caravan parks to me more than showing me what's available that's free, because it's a company, it's out there to make money. So I started using Camps Australia, and I haven't actually used it a lot because I haven't actually been, traveling around Australia over the last, 12 or so months. So if anyone's got recommendations, please put them in the links below, in the comment section below. But what I tend to do, for example, in WA, I'm very familiar with different areas. So I know the kind of area that I want to go to. And so I will just go on to the local government website, which is Parks WA, or Park Stays WA. And so that will take me more to national parks, because I know that I'm not really looking for a caravan park experience. Generally speaking, with caravan parks, a lot of the time you can just turn up and there'll be a spot. That's not all the time, obviously. School holidays and long weekends, you're not going to find that. But I do prefer to be more off-grid. I want to be out in nature. I want to be in the national parks. So I go to that government website, and it's really good because I can put in an area and then I can look at a map and it will show me what campgrounds are in that area. And I just prefer that because I also prefer supporting those areas as well, because I think it's important that we have those areas for people to reconnect with nature. And when I first started van life, I'm like, oh, we should all be able to live free everywhere. But I understand why we need to pay, because there is still things they need to do to maintain those areas. We've still got to make sure that they're kept clean, because there are people that don't do the right thing. They provide amenities like drop toilets and stuff. So, and the cost is really minimal. So that's another advantage to going national parks and off-grid. So caravan parks can get quite expensive. If you're staying at the national parks, you're generally paying about $15 a night. If you've got a concession, it can be $10 a night. There are some that are a little bit more expensive, like $20 and $25 a night. So I'm paying $25 a night where I am right now. There aren't any showers, there are toilets, there are silage facilities, there's bins. So, it's right on the beach. So they've got to maintain, the road access as well. So I'm quite happy to pay those minimal amounts. And the other good thing about those places is that, generally speaking, when you have selected that on the website, you can see a site map of the campground. So I like to try and find a campsite that is a little bit away from other people, because I just like my privacy. I'm there for my peace and quiet. So I like to be able to go, okay, I want, this one here because it's in the corner, it's easy. easy exit if I need to. I chose this particular campsite I'm on now because it is a little bit separate, but it also is right on the beach, which, you know, how amazing is that? So the other thing is sometimes you can actually get an aerial view on those maps as well. So you can see if there's going to be a lot of trees around you. So if you've got really big trees, you might need more access to sun. If you've got Starlink, you might need more access to the open sky for the satellites. So it's good to be able to pick and choose that way. And I tend to try and, I really don't go blind into campgrounds. I really like to have a look and go, okay, where can I book? You know, I want to make sure I get the right site for me. So I am looking for things like, obviously I like toilets, you know, drop toilets don't worry me. They might bother you because the smell's pretty funky sometimes. And some drop toilets are nicer than others. You might need a silage point to drop off, you know, empty your tanks if you do have toilet facilities. Some of these national park grounds don't have bins, so you might have to take all your rubbish with you. A lot of the times they do though, but it's just something you've got to think about. And the other thing you want to think about too is access. So you want to have a look. It will tell you on there whether it's four-wheel drive, whether there's water available, and all of those different things that you need to think about. So whenever I go off grid, I tend to fill all my tanks up first, because quite often, even if there is a bit of water, like there is in this campground here, but it's not potable water. So when they say it's not potable, it just means it hasn't been treated, so you can't drink it. You could use it to wash your hands or wash dishes or something, but you just shouldn't consume it. And so obviously if it says four-wheel drive access only, you need to pay attention to that. If it says two-wheel drive access, try not to take that as gospel either. So I have had some scenarios where there was Darty's campground that I went to, and I like to sort of do a bit of reading as well about, you know, what that road is like. It might be like, if it's really, really corrugated, in this van, like everything's going to move and shake, and if that road is going for quite a while, it's probably just not worth the wear and tear on my vehicle to take that road. The Darty's campground one was actually really steep, and I went when it had been raining, and so it was quite muddy. And so I was going in thinking, my gosh, I'm going to struggle to get out of here because my vehicle weighs, I don't know, 2.8 or something ton, I forget. Anyway, it's heavy. So when I left the campground, my back wheel was spinning out a couple of times because it was so muddy. So you do have to kind of think about that. And that's where sometimes, if you can look on things like TripAdvisor at that particular campground, people will give their feedback on it. So when I was down in Albany and I went to some free campgrounds on the beach there, it's quite hilly, and so it was really steep access to get to those campgrounds. And you know, because I'm in a long vehicle as well, you know, will I have access to turn around if I decide this is actually too dodgy, I'm never going to get out of here? So it's helpful to sort of read those reviews as well. If it's saying that it's not suitable for caravans, that's when I start to go, okay, I really need to have a bit more of a look at, you know, why is it not suitable for caravans? Does that mean, you know, I might struggle a little bit? Because I'm on my own as well. So if I get stuck, and I'm sure people would help, but if there's no one else staying there at that campground, then I could be in a spot of bother. So, and look, you know, worst case scenario, I'm sure it'll all work out in the end, but you just don't want to get stuck in those situations, really. Now, the one problem with staying in national park campgrounds is that it can sometimes be a bit of a challenge to get a spot. During peak periods where it's, you know, for example, up in Ningaloo during the winter months, it gets really, really busy up there. And down south, so in Esperance, it's really busy there during the summer months. So people do cancel though. So those two areas can be pretty much fully booked, and so if you don't get in a year in advance, you're not going to get a spot for the time frame that you want. If you are travelling though and you think it's all booked out, you know, just try a little trick. So I'm heading down to Esperance at some stage over the next couple of months, and I want to stay in Lucky Bay campground, it's right on the beach, and it's always booked out. Anyway, so what you do is you will select the campground and you just pick a day like around the time frame that you want to go, and you just say that you want to stay one night. And so you just keep going next day, next day, next day until you find one day that is free. And then you can extend that day by another day or by 3 days. And that way you can sort of go, okay, well, there's a 3 day time frame here where there's a campsite available. Because if you're going in and you're going, right, I want a campsite between the 10th and the 20th of a month, it's not going to say there's any availability, because it will just say, well, you know, we can't accommodate you for that full period, so it won't give you any availability. So it's better to just try and pick one day and then just try and see how many more days following on from that you can actually get a campsite for. And there are private properties as well, which I think you can find on HipCamp, and they will just, you know, rent out little pieces of land on their larger properties for people that want to camp there. And some of them will provide facilities, some won't. There's actually a guy on TikTok that rates all of these different hip camps, and they look amazing. Some of them got like little creeks running through their property and things. So I think I will try some of those out when I head over east. I haven't tried any of them out yet. Now, weather is something else you need to think about too. In van life, I tend to spend summer down in the southwest and then winter up in Queensland. The reason for that is because you don't really want to be in the northern parts of Australia during summer, because that's when they get a lot of flooding and you get a lot of cyclones coming through. So, but then you don't really want to be in the southern areas of Australia during winter, because it can get really, really, really cold. And a lot of you know, I really don't like the cold. So where I am right now, it is quite windy, but I have kind of enjoyed that wind because it's been 30 odd degrees. So when that sea breeze comes in, it's been really beautiful. But I did want to take my sup out here because I'm in a little bay, but even the easterlies coming through are quite strong. So I haven't been able to do that yet. I'm hoping maybe tomorrow or Friday. But you've got to have a think about all those different things, because in Australia we do have some extreme weather conditions. So I have been caught out in flooding before, I have been caught out with fires before. And the other thing too is trees as well. So I have been, not personally, but I've come across a few situations where people have parked under large trees and like a tree branch has just fallen on top of their vehicle. Which would just really cause you to have a bad day, really. So whether that's just because a tree has reached an age, like it might have something wrong with the tree, but obviously with high winds as well. So if you are expecting high winds, it might be good just to have a think about what's around you, because if you do have large trees, there's always that potential. And with bushfires as well, if you're in a built-up forest area that's quite dry, there is that potential risk of just being caught in a bushfire. So you do just want to make sure, do a mental check of where the exits are. You know, we do have alert systems in Australia, so it's handy to sort of, you know, maybe log in to have those alert systems on your phone, or just keep an eye on, you know, fire watch apps in those particular states. So as a solo female traveller as well, I do really need to think about safety. And I have to admit, I actually didn't go to campgrounds for the first couple of years of van life because I was concerned about my safety. Turns out it's completely fine most of the time. So where I am at the moment is caravans everywhere. So it's generally families or grey nomads. It's not very often that you'll come across a campground that is, you know, full of dodgy people. I did find down in Albany, there was one down there that I stayed at that was a little bit questionable, but that's why I always make sure that I have reception of some sort. So I do have, where I'm at the moment, the cell reception is not great, if at all. I've got one bar, but I do have Starlink, and there's no trees, so my Starlink, you know, can operate no problem. But I do need power to power the Starlink as well. So I just make sure that I've thought about all those things when I, you know, and make sure that they all work when I come to my campsite. And I also have the Life 360 app so that my daughter can track me as well wherever I am. If I get to a campsite that it just feels a little bit dodgy, like if there's nobody else around, It's well off the road, and you know, like your gut will just tell you. And I have done other videos on personal safety, so feel free to check those out. And I have had, you know, and I mentioned in that I had a situation where I was the only person in this campground, and a guy comes past in his ute and just drives really, really slowly, just staring at me past my vehicle. So I was like, okay, that's enough for me to move on. So it's always good just to have a backup plan as well. You know, if you ever feel uncomfortable, worst case scenario, find the closest town and just stealth camp in the town, and just, you know, risk the potential of a fine, because you'd rather pay the fine than be unsafe. Or if you have the time and the caravan park is still open, just pay a few bucks extra to stay at the caravan park if you feel safer there. There have been some, if I go to some of the mining towns, I feel a bit uncomfortable. So generally speaking, if I've got to stay in a mining town and I can't be out of the town, then I will stay in a caravan park because I feel safer. Well, I hope some of these tips have been helpful for you to find your perfect campground and campsite. If you've got any other tips that I haven't mentioned, please make sure you comment in the section below so that we can all learn from you as well. And I might try those tips out too. So yes, thank you all for listening, and many happy travels.